All right, we're back live with Monty Marcum from Monty Marcum's Nursery here in Norman. Um, Monty and I met, ironically, in 2021 in DC. Uh, we ran into each other, we shook hands, and we went our separate ways. And from that day and that point, we never thought the way our lives would change ever since January 6th occurred. Um, we've been vilified by local media, vilified by the left in Norman, and today is the fifth anniversary of January 6th. And I thought I'd have Monty on officially to discuss what we saw, what we heard, where things are today. Monty, I'd like to thank you for coming on the show today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Rashar. This morning when I woke up, I didn't even think about January the 6th, honestly. So it's been there was a lot of crazy things that happened, but a lot of truths coming out, and I'm just glad that I was there to exercise my right to free speech.
Right.
That's what it was.
You know, so I was running for office at the time, and we decided to take a road trip. We brought people from Norman, Oklahoma. They caravan into to DC, and we flew into DC, and we stayed at the Mandarin Oriental, and we had every intent to make it to the Ellipse on January 6th because we had bought tickets to see Donald Trump's last public event, and I have never been to one before, but we thought it would be the time to go and do it now. So we got there on January 5th, and around the plaza and around the hotel, there were thousands of people there, just pre-setting up their own seats and their own locations. So on January 6th, we left our hotel at 6 a.m. with the intent to go and get our tickets before the 9 o'clock event started at the Ellipse. But as we left the hotel, I don't know if you noticed this too, there are already hundreds of thousands of Americans already out in that park. Did you see the same thing?
Crazy. It was crazy. It was crazy. I mean, I we had stayed over there previous times around the Federal Triangle area there, and but that day we had stayed out at across the river near the airport so we could get out easier in the morning. And so we got on the train to go down to the Federal Triangle, and there was a train load of people on there singing and we're not going to take this anymore. It was a blast. I mean, the train was full of them. And I couldn't believe where there were that many there. And then when we got off of the train, Richard, and started walking over, just kind of finding our way around, I could not believe how many people were coming in down all those streets. It was just incredible, and I thought, wow, this is good. This is big for sure.
It was
Yeah.
big, and we
Yeah.
saw Americans dressed in patriotic gear. I did have my Trump hat on. I didn't carry a flag, but I love seeing individuals dressed in 1776 gear, and everybody was
Yeah.
polite.
Yeah.
Everybody was nice. We were
Yeah.
exchanging phone numbers, and it was a miracle that we ran into each other as we did.
Right.
But afterwards, I recall this. I was standing in the crowd. We were in our group, and I saw a set of men, three men dressed in black, goggles, ski masks, backpacks, everything in black come through the crowd the first time. I think it was around 10 o'clock in the morning. Um, 10:10, another set of men, this time four, walking in the opposite direction, same dress, black, goggles, ski masks, everything black, including the backpacks, until I saw the fourth set pass us. I go, that's strange, but didn't think anything of it. And as you know, I have a back and neck injury from the Gulf War, and being in the cold, damp, I just needed to get out of the cold and head back to our hotel. That was around 12:30. So we got back to our hotel around 12:30, and I was watching the news, and about 1 o'clock almost, um, I received a phone call from one of our friends, and he told me that there was an explosion up on Constitutional Avenue. And I said, send me your pin. I'll come out and see and help. And he thought it was weird to see and have this happen. But the news was already showing people attacking the Capitol Police. And
Right.
I'm looking out. So we were on the top floor, near the top floor of the Mandarin, and we can still see and hear Donald Trump still talking, still speaking.
Yeah.
And there were people
Right.
still around him that we had left still listening to him. But then the news was reporting that protesters or riots had broken through the barricades and were attacking the police. Now, um, you
Right.
know, we had the foresight not to leave the hotel because I was ordered not to leave the hotel. But you were actually there, and the time frame matches what I saw on TV and what I saw when I left. So tell us what you saw on the ground firsthand.
Well, I'm going to start off by going back a little bit on documented films and things that were put out by different people at that time. And at 107 uh, uh, p.m. There was a picture from the inside of the Capitol coming out. There were already photographers in the Capitol stage and everything, and it had maybe 150 people gathered in front of the Capitol itself, and there were already some type of a loud bang, and then right after that, you saw smoke come by the screen, and this is at
Right.
107. So I mean, this was long before anything like that ever occurred. Most of the calamity took place, during the speech. Now, as we went down there, we had been to a couple of other rallies previously to that, and we normally the route that you would take would be Pennsylvania Avenue, but when the speech ended, everyone took off down Constitution, and there was a tremendous back. It was just basically at a standstill. So we went ahead and went on up the block, a couple of blocks to Pennsylvania to walk on down, and when we did, we got way ahead of the main part of the crowd
Right.
that was leaving the ellipse, and so we kind of got there a little bit earlier, and we start seeing when we're on the way down there. We look over there to our left, and there's behind some hedges. There's people changing into MAGA gear and all this kind of stuff. And then we're walking on further and taking pictures of Antifa
Mm.
up on top of the
Hmm.
Peace Monument.
Yep.
And but we had been there earlier, and Constitution Avenue was blocked. It was blocked where you couldn't go up the hill, up Capitol Hill. It was blocked, which cut off all access to the people. They basically got sandwiched in down there on the west side. And we started looking at each other and going, "What's wrong with this?" There's no security. They had dropped all sense of security around the Capitol from what we had seen on previous visits. So it kind of alarmed us. Well, we went on down and walked on down a little bit further and to see what's going on because we'd seen some
Right.
guys come out of there with pepper spray all over them. So we walked on down there a little bit further, and we're standing there talking. And about that time, that explosion that you heard a little while ago, that was one of those percussion grenades that they launched out there right into the middle of the crowd just as they approached the Capitol. They hadn't even gotten there really yet and formed up. Most of the crowd was already there, that was involved in doing the so-called the riot act. And I don't mean that, and I'm talking about the act of doing a riot. I
Right.
don't know,
Right.
but
Right.
they were already doing that. And so we saw those kinds of things happen. I had a guy walk up to me with a baseball cap with 5 cameras underneath it that got up off of a chair and walked over and started talking to me. And I guarantee he was FBI. So they were implanted all over the place. Not only that, but there were policemen, there were people dressed like policemen that really weren't policemen. They didn't even have on the same uniforms necessarily. It was bizarre. But
Hmm.
you know, but mainly having uh, the security, Rashard. If somebody would have pulled up there in that situation with a truck bomb or something, they could have
Right.
drove that thing through the front door of the Capitol. I mean, there was just no security whatsoever, and it was just really astounding to watch, and then to see. how they staged the people that were up on the terrace of the Capitol hollering down to people in with megaphones and all that. It was just a fake and phony deal altogether. You know, um, it when you see it right then and there, you really don't. You're I don't know that you realize that right then. You know, you say something's weird and not working out here, but you don't really realize it until you back off and look at it again. And that's whenever you see that every step of it was planned,
Right.
and it was just planned, and it was meant to come off like it came off. And then when you realize that, well, man, if they're willing to do that to to keep to keep a vote from being decertified or whatever, if they're willing to do that, they're willing to do anything, and that's a scary thought, Rashar.
It was a scary thought. Now, I was interviewed by the press, the media back here in Oklahoma City, in DC, and I had told them my firsthand witness accounts of Antifa in the crowd, what I thought was Antifa in the crowds. They dismissed that because, of course, the FBI at the time said that was not credible evidence that Antifa was part of this or we had any agitators. Now,
Oh,
were you interviewed by any local media when you got back to Norman?
no, no, I wasn't.
But we got
We
vilified in the
had.
news.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, we got the Atlanta Constitution Journal and the Washington Post and the New York Times. They all called here for comment, and I told them, I said, I don't have any comment, for you guys. I don't, because I knew where it would go. And then later on, a hit piece came out in Time Magazine. So there was some of that going on, but no, I didn't ever get any local media interviews at all. I did get an interview from the FBI, but other than that, I mean, but you know what,
Well, we'll get
Richard,
to that soon.
those guys were really decent dudes. They weren't, they didn't come down. They were, they were good guys, and if they had to been, this story would have been a whole lot different for me.
I would say too. I would agree with you. I remember your brother calling me uh, when the FBI had just left you, and he said that they're probably on their way to see you. And it was only in 2024 when we were invited back to DC to do and be part of a documentary with Newsmax on this. It was called "Shame of a Nation." I know you saw it
Yeah.
on
Yes, I
TV.
did.
And so I was talking to a lot of politicians. Cash Patel was there, and he told me that they had a geofence the entire Capitol. And it was, when you and I met and we went our separate directions, you just happened to cross Constitutional Avenue. I can't remember what the cross street was at the time, and you were just caught in that electronic dragnet. And if you had gone a different direction, if we had gone a different direction, we would have been included too. I'm retired Air Force. They know where they're sending my retirement check to every month.
Yep.
And, I have two law firms at my disposal, and I was just waiting for the call. And the funny thing here, in Norman's, the left, every time I held my town halls, they would send messages to me saying, "Hey, we just sent um, your date and time, your location to the FBI, so they know where to come and
Yeah.
arrest
Yeah.
you." It was hilarious, but
Uh,
it
yeah.
was funny. But the death threats, to our businesses.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
recall that document that was sent around by the left, the far left in Norman, in Oklahoma. They had our names on it. It was a top 10
Yes.
list of people who went to DC on January 6th not to do business
Yeah.
with. And I figured you'd be number one, but you were actually number three, I think, and I was actually number one. And this is how
Well,
far the far left will go to demonize us for something we know we didn't do wrong. The media, we call them the legacy media now, and the corrupt politicians on the left used this situation and they framed it and they put their own assets in place to create what they were calling an insurrection at the time. But you and I know, and many thousands of Americans who were actually there, and a lot from Oklahoma that we met afterwards that we can share stories with, and they saw our documentary on Newsmax. They all say the same thing. We were all peaceful. There was no non-peaceful people there. Everybody there for that morning and that afternoon were truly 100% conservative, Republican, patriotic Americans who were just there to support the president in what we know now was a rigged election.
Yes. Well, it was. I tell you what, Richard. The reason why, I've been asked several times. Well, because we went on November the 14th, back on December the 12th, and then again we were there on January the 6th. And I've been asked, why, why, and I can tell you why. It was because we were around some of the most incredible people. We met some of the most genuine. I mean, people that could be your friend anytime from all over the United States, and
Absolutely.
we had a blast. We had a blast doing it. It was like, you had just something so deep in common with such a huge throng of people that it was really just an incredible feeling to be a part of. And it was more about a love fest. There, I never, I've been to they would sing the national anthem. They would sing religious songs. They'd pump out some ACDC over the
Yep.
loudspeakers and everything else.
Yep.
But let me tell you, those people down there were one, and they were together. And whenever we walked in November the 14th there, and I saw the crowd of people that was going up Pennsylvania Avenue and then on up
Right.
Constitution to the top of Capitol Hill, and you see that thing about 60 feet wide, nothing but people, and they're all marching to the same place. You know that you're in a place where you're in a unified spot, and it was just so much fun to be a part of that. So yeah, peaceful. It was always that. Richard,
Mm-mm.
that was I never saw anyone, period, ever get out of line with anyone. And they'd be along, hugging policemen. They'd be hugging each
Exactly.
other. They'd be hugging the damn door guy, at the hotel. I mean, that kind of thing. I mean, so, it was that kind of an atmosphere on January the 6th as well.
So, you know, we were both attacked by publications. The LA Times wrote a scathing piece about me, calling me a
Yeah.
racist,
Yeah.
insurrectionist. The Black Wall Street Times in Tulsa wrote a hit piece against me as well. But in January of last year, when President Trump pardoned nearly 1,500 J6ers, that was true vindication, because we now know after winning back the presidency and having access to everything, it was a setup. And KOCO was here at the house, and they did interview me on the pardons, and I remember saying that this was about accountability. Okay, the people demanded accountability. That what had happened to everybody who was in prison, especially those in DC jails and around the nation, for attending a protest. Okay, you can compare this to what happened to the summer of love, the 18 months of Antifa and Black Lives Matter, burning down this country, tearing down statues, destroying property, billions of dollars in insurance lost. And I think the last number was 19 people were killed in 18 months. But nobody went to jail for that. They didn't call that an insurrection. But how do they justify calling what we went through an insurrection and putting us in jail? It was just by the grace of God that you and I didn't end up in jail. But
Exactly. Truthfully,
but
thank the Lord. It's
you
true.
thank the Lord, but when you have conversations, so we had conversations on the way back when we got back to Norman with our groups, and we discussed what we did, why we were there, and they understood. Most of our people understood, but some of our friends did not understand why we would do that. But it was a First Amendment right to attend a protest, and like I said, we did nothing wrong. We saw nothing wrong, and now that every day passes, we hear more and have the truth, and you can't hide the truth from the people. Donald Trump was on this morning on an untelevised or televised, unplanned address he gave, and I plan to report on that. But how do you feel that the media attacked us so viciously, but did not attack the Antifa Black Lives Matter in 2020 and 2021 here in Norman, Oklahoma. As you know, the city council
No,
defunded the Norman Police Department, and a group of
right,
citizens banded together
right.
in probably the largest, fastest growing conservative grassroots movement in the history of Oklahoma. But, I don't know if you were there with us, but remember our conversations on our Facebook Lives on that page. We were discussing Antifa and Black Lives Matter. We were peaceful, but they would come in front of us, yelling and screaming, wanting to
Oh
engage
my,
with us in a fight. Remember those
oh my,
days? It was reported in the
oh
news.
boy. It's yeah, but it's bizarre. And the thing of it is that once you've been exposed to Antifa and you've been close to them, I wrote a little deal called Elbow to Elbow. You know what they are, and the crazy thing of it is, Richards, there's no soul in their eyes. It's I don't know, but you just see it, and you just know that they're extremely lost people. But as far as the media and all that kind of things concerned, it doesn't surprise me one bit because the truth of it is that they're all a part of it. I mean,
Right,
they're for some reason they've decided that they want to do whatever it is to degrade, to downsize, to cut, to inflict harm and damage to the United States of America and to the Constitution of the United States. That's what they're all about. It's what they've always been. It's what they've been for the longest of time, and that's what their sole goal is to destroy the Western way of life. I mean, and I don't understand it, but that's what it is, and that's what they do. So, and they do it at all levels. It's not just any way that they can hurt the cause, the mega cause, if you want to call it that. I want to call it the freedom cause. I want to call it something to where there's a count where we have real elections, we have
right.
real debate, we have real things that are hashed out through policy in Washington D.C. or in Oklahoma City or at Goldsby Town Hall, for crying out loud. Those kinds of things are what we need in government. That's what it was designed for people that obey the law. you know the thing about it that bothers me right now is that there's so many people out there who have just taken the law. You hear these people say, well, Trump went in there and illegally invaded Venezuela. Well, bullcrap.
Hmm.
He did not. Just because they say it doesn't mean it's so, but because they just say it and they expect everybody to believe it. And sadly, a lot of people do. But to be surprised at what the media did and all that kind of thing, is what their motive is. I'm not surprised in the least bit. Does it anger me to think that they would do that? Yes, it does. But it's just like today I was called a traitor today.
Mm.
And so to go out there and to try to um, change their minds, Rashar, to try to reason with them, to try to say, look, maybe you need to pay attention to somebody else besides who you're listening to, because who you're listening to is nothing more than it's just vomit lies, and it's just
Exactly.
continual. So there's no reason to even try to uh, to make amends to that. You can't do it.
All we can do is just move forward and live our lives the way we want to live our lives, in total
Exactly.
freedom. And so, comparing the summer of love with Antifa and Black Lives Matter destroying this country and burning it down
Huh.
to what we've done and to what you and I have done in the community in Norman, Oklahoma. I'm okay with what I did, and
Me
I
too.
didn't realize
Make that clear.
until you, yeah, I didn't realize until you mentioned it today that this was January 6th. And I had some stories come through that we posted on our newspaper site. And so I had to write my personal views. I don't know. I saw you responded to, the lessons I learned
Mhm.
about January 6th. Do
Right.
you agree with all of it? Do you have anything you want to
Oh,
add to that?
absolutely. Absolutely, I agree with it. Completely. I mean, it's the truth. I mean, I don't know. if someone were to say, "Hey, you want to say that under oath? You want to?" I mean, and like I said earlier, you're not ever going to convince some of these nut jobs, of anything, and especially the fact that you say, "Well, trust me, I'm telling you the truth," but I am.
Right. But
I know what I saw. I don't, and it's not, and there's no, and some people, most of your audience probably does, but there's some of them on here I know that I can expect some smart remarks from. I don't know, but it's there's just that's all we can do, Richard. We've just got to stay to our convictions. We've got to make sure that we do whatever we can to uh, contribute to our country and in whatever way we can, because there's a lot of people that have laid down a lot of sacrifices for us,
I know.
and if we don't uphold that, well, shame on us, and to pass it along to our children. But I can tell you that right now, even today, even with the presidency back in Trump's hands and all those kinds of things, this war that we're in the middle of is far from over. And this, I don't know, the difficult thing about it, I think, is a lot of times the enemy that we fight is so subversive. They're not
Right.
just like they did on January the 6th. They made this all up. They had this all planned. They knew what they wanted to gain from it, and they executed their plan. And to think that there's people out there like that, most Americans don't really realize that, Rashar. I'm sorry, they just don't. But it exists, and it's real, and it's just something to where we have to be constantly demanding that the Constitution be upheld, and that there be law, that real laws be enforced. I mean, you look around right now. Well, look at what James Comey. Look at what some of these guys did. That were, those guys should be in jail, Rashar. I mean, you could go thousands and thousands of names of people that have committed crimes right out in front of the public, and nobody's doing a dadgum thing about it. I
And
mean,
that's the
it's bizarre
frustration.
that,
Look, the frustration that many Republicans have, MAGA, conservative, but most Republicans have, that nobody has been arrested. Nobody has been
yes,
indicted. So James Comey was indicted, but that didn't go anywhere. But
no,
but the point is, and everybody agrees with our point that they're getting pissed off with the DOJ, sometimes with Pam Bondi, Cash Patel, not so much, but they're really frustrated that nobody has gone to jail for nothing. And the president knows this. He's focusing on other things here, but I know it's in the back of his mind because he wants vindication too. So Roger Stone was at AmFest a couple of weeks ago, and good friends with Roger, big fan of what he has to say. And how he was arrested in the wee morning with CNN in the background recording the entire thing, the morning raids at
yeah,
Mar-a-Lago, everything that's happened to everybody in Trump's circle has not happened to James Comey. And since you brought James Comey up, the guy was given, hey, when do you want to come in, bro? Bullshit. I wanted to see the
right,
FBI knock down his door and drag his ass out with Fox News and One American News and Real American Voice and Steve Bannon recorded the entire thing. So Steve Bannon went to prison or jail. Giuliani,
yeah,
everybody in the circle got and went to jail. But here
yeah.
we sit today still, today, and no one on the other side who was responsible for everything that's happened in this country, the bad, has seen the inside of a jail cell. And then, like you said
It's
earlier,
frustrating.
so
It's totally
Maduro,
frustrating.
look, we had the right to go down and get Maduro. I mean, so he was already indicted in 2020. It was just a matter of who was going to go get him. And there is precedence for it. There is precedent for what we did. We did the same thing to Noriega. Okay, so
Yes,
we are protecting our hemisphere, and the Monroe Doctrine certainly applies to what he did.
yes,
And so I support everything he's done. And we have a Venezuelan community here in Norman that our road that Berry Baptist Road supported, and they come here in 2018. I had him on the podcast. It was an impromptu podcast Saturday morning. As soon as the news broke that he was captured, and I wrote an
yeah,
article, And here we go. So No Kings this weekend on Sunday, I believe, was protesting us for capturing a dictator when this year in the summertime they were protesting against Trump, who they said was a dictator. So these guys on the left, I want to say they mean well, Monty, but I gotta say, man, they're a bunch of morons. At this point here,
Ah,
they don't have a concept to what's going on. And I don't look, I say that in jest. I have some people on the other side that I have the lines of communication open, but the hypocrisy of them calling us out and for what we did for a true dictator, okay, who was killing people. And in fact, he wasn't even the legitimate president. He had lost in the election. He just held on to power. We have Venezuelans celebrating in Oklahoma and around the nation, and they're happy with Trump for what he did. He did the right thing. And if you read yesterday's story, my post as well, when he was arraigned yesterday and he was given his rights, he just said, "What? I didn't know this was afforded to me." And that's just the American way of justice. And it works that even a piece of shit like Maduro recognizes, hey, I didn't know that, that these rights that Americans have and anybody who's in the court system has to go through, their rights are protected. I want to thank you, Monty, for coming on. You're a stand-up guy, and I'd like to have you on
hey,
more
thank you, Rochar. So are you.
throughout.
And yeah, I
What's
read your
that? What's
post
that?
today, and I'd do it all over again too, Rochar.
Look, I am who. Look, we are who we are. We're patriots. It's our First Amendment rights. We are peaceful people.
Yes, sir.
Um, and we have done a lot for Norman, a lot for Cleveland County, a lot for Oklahoma. Um, and I do appreciate you coming on. Next up on the line, the segment, President Trump addresses the nation at a press conference earlier this morning, and we'll bring you highlights of that. And we're going for a
Thank you,
break.
Rochar.
Thank you, Monty.